Coming. All right, I will call the regular town council meeting of February 2023 to order, and that's for roll call.
Council members Bramley,
Here.
Kroger is not present. Lakin, here. Schuyler,
Here.
Thomas is not present. Mayor Pro Tem Meyer,
Here.
Mayor Clark.
Here. All right, first off, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor, I have a couple. I'd like to request the removal of item 6, update from Andrew Michelson of Art Space. He has a family issue and won't be able to join us this evening.
Okay.
In his stead, I'd like to take a moment to introduce Joyce Fong, our new engineering consultant.
Great.
So if we could just replace it with that, that'd be great.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else? Nothing else?
No, sir.
Okay. That brings us to adoption consent calendar. Liquor licenses on there. Anybody have anything they want to pull off, or is there a motion approved? So moved.
Second.
Motion moved by Russ, seconded by Beth. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. That brings us to public comments, which is established time on the agenda for the public to address council regarding any item that's not otherwise listed on the agenda. Anybody have anything? No? I thought for sure you would.
No, for later.
Okay.
I'll save it for later.
Okay, sounds good. All right, and that takes us to policy.
There's a hand.
Oh, there's a hand. There's let's see who that is.
Val.
Okay, go ahead, Val.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, I do want to thank the council for the opportunity. Just to mention is that the Dark Sky Committee of Rock here is proposing a dark sky event, proposing in partnership with the town, possibly even with the partnership with the county, concerning lighting, dark sky lighting technology. And we see this as an educational outreach event to the community. We don't have a specific date or venue yet, but we would like to throw that out as a possibility. This will be an excellent example that the town would be able to write up in their report to IDA, International Dark Sky Association, here for 2023 as an outreach event. They're required to have a number of public outreach events. So that's one thing that we would like to propose to town council, and next month maybe we would have some specifics on time and date and venue on that. And so just wanted to throw that out as a possibility. And also is that as part of the Ridgway certification in July of 2022, no, excuse me, on 2020, is that I think it's identified a number of street lights. And so the Dark Sky Committee, and specifically Dave Jones and myself, would like to help if any way we can with the town and SMPA to identify those lights and to put together perhaps a plan to update those to meet the 5-year deadline. So we're coming up on 3 years this summer. And so we're just offering our help as needed with that.
Great, thanks, Val. That's really nice. And thanks for the heads up on the event. You and I've shared a couple emails tentatively about it. So thanks for letting the rest of council know and the public. Appreciate all your efforts on behalf of the Dark Sky initiatives that we've got going in the county. And anybody on council have any questions for Val? Anybody in the audience? Righty. Anybody else have something they want to address council on under public comments? Seeing any on Zoom, I will move us along to policy matters. Item number 5, resolution number 2303 The resolution of the town council in the town of Ridgway, Colorado, authorizing the exercise of the town's eminent domain authority to acquire real property for a recreational path. Well, I think you're taking this one.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. If it's okay, I'd like to turn it over to Joseph Rivera, who's our special counsel here with Murray Dahl. And he'll take the lead.
Sounds good. Take it away, Mr. Rivera.
Joe, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Great. Thank you for allowing me to appear via Zoom. I appreciate that. I'm going to talk to you this evening about the resolution authorizing the use of eminent domain. And it's really the start of a process. In order to exercise the power of eminent domain, a condemnor, a local government with the power of eminent domain, must satisfy four prerequisites, four steps that must be satisfied before a condemnation may properly occur. The first is that the condemnation must be, the land taken must be for a public purpose and public use. Those are divided into two, but there's not much daylight between those two. That basically means it's for a public good, a road, a recreational pathway, a sewer line, something like that. All neatly fit that category. The second is, or the third is necessity, which basically means that the local entity is only taking that land which is necessary for the public improvement, for the public use. And the fourth prerequisite is good faith negotiations. And what that means is basically the condemnor, the local government, must reach out to the landowner and attempt in good faith to purchase the property before it may move on to condemnation. And those steps are set forth in the resolution. And so long as those steps are satisfied, then if good faith negotiations are not successful, then we move on to the court phase. And at the courthouse, the only question is, what is just compensation? Or as it's better thought of as, what is the reasonable market value of the land acquired, as well as any damages, if any, to the remainder of the property. What this resolution does is it's a formal announcement of the town's intent to go down that pathway. And as we go down those pathways, the landowner will be made aware of that eminent domain is on the horizon. It's something the town may use as a power if good faith negotiations are not successful. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I believe that's a solid overview.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. Anybody on council have any questions for him on this? And just so everybody in the audience knows, everybody on Zoom, this is in the interest of, it's something we've been discussing on and off. Kuno is very familiar with the issue. Who's here in the audience. We've been discussing on and off for probably several years now, really. There's an unauthorized trail from River Park to the school property, the high school, that we were just trying to actually create the easement for, so that there's good, safe access and more direct access for pedestrians, students, parents to get from River Park to the school. And we've been trying to negotiate with the property owner, and now we're looking at potentially condemnation. So that's why we're here where we are. Anybody have any questions? Either on Zoom or here in the room? Kuno?
Kuno Vollenweider, I live at 295 South Mary Street in Ridgway. I'm the one that brought this most recently to your attention a few times, and I just want to encourage you to not shy away from unpleasant dealings, whether it's these condemnations or other condemnations that we need to do in order to plan for the next 20 or 30 years. As a resident, I've been here for 35 years. I've never believed that I'd be here that long. Not going to be here for 35 more years unless there's a miracle. But on the other hand, we need to plan for the future, and it's priceless what we do today for the future, whether it's for the citizens, for the children. They're all future citizens. And whether it's a road access or whether it's pedestrian access, we need to plan now for growth that obviously seems to happen. Thanks for listening to me.
Thanks, Colonel. Anyone else? All right, not seeing any hands or anybody on Zoom. I need a motion.
For that, a couple things.
Oh,
One,
go ahead.
in the resolution itself, there's a number of misspellings that were trails spelled as trial
Oh, yeah.
in a couple places, and a few of the whereases. Just a typo.
Yeah, we got an email about that this afternoon.
Secondly, this is a question for Bo. Bo, because I own a neighboring property, should I recuse myself from this vote?
So I think that we've talked about this previously, but Terry, the conflict rests with you. And so it's your responsibility to do the analysis in terms of whether or not you feel like you can make a decision based on where you reside that would be impartial. To me, it seems like there potentially are some issues here that would give concern, but ultimately you need to make that decision.
I'll choose to recuse myself.
Okay. If anybody didn't hear that, Commissioner Schuyler is going to recuse himself because he owns a neighboring property.
There's a hand up.
I think that's been there, kind of in Jack's bottom right corner. It doesn't.
Oh, just the cursor.
I was gonna say, it doesn't look like voting here. Motion.
Yeah, I think we're ready for motion.
Okay, so I move to approve resolution number 23-03, a resolution of the town council of the town of Ridgway, Colorado, authorizing the exercise of the town's eminent domain authority to acquire real property for a recreational pathway.
Second.
All right. I meant to, I think the reason I was hesitating, I was trying to remember, I think we need to make sure that Mr. Rivera and or Bo are going to fix those typos in here before finalizing it, getting it signed. I meant to bring this up earlier, I apologize, but I think it's appropriate to discuss it under further discussion. I would say this, calling it a recreational pathway is maybe limiting it more than we should. Is that something we're concerned about? Because it's more than just a recreational pathway, it's a pedestrian access. Some would argue that recreational pathway is a sort of limited use, or maybe not as important a use as a full-on pedestrian access. What do you guys have an opinion, Bo or Mr. Rivera?
I mean, I would welcome Mr. Rivera to weigh in, but I don't know that we'd have any issues with the modification language. I mean, I think we want to be as clear as possible with respect to potential uses.
It's an easement interest, and an easement is defined by its scope. And so, and right now the scope is for a recreational pathway. I don't have any problem with changing it to a pedestrian pathway. I chose the phrase recreational pathway because pedestrian pathway would suggest a limitation to for folks who are walking, whereas a recreational pathway is a broader term that would encompass use of bicycles and such. But that would be my only concern regarding to call it a pedestrian pathway. I believe a recreational pathway encompasses both the use of bikes on the pathway as well as pedestrian traffic. If it's the council's desire to have both bikes and bikes and pedestrians, a recreational pathway, I think, is a slightly better term. But you know, at this point, it's really a question of preference, and I'm happy to make those changes, whatever change the council desires.
What's the feeling, council? Probably not that big a deal.
No. Given his explanation, recreation sounds probably more appropriate,
More inclusive.
yeah.
I do agree with you, John, though, that, you know, with context, describing what the pathway is for, you know, I'm okay with recreational pathway, but if you just read the one sentence, it does make it seem a little light or just not as important as it actually is for the school. Do both, slash.
One other thing I could do, if I could interject, first off, I apologize for the typos. That's embarrassing, and thank you for bringing it to my attention. I'll fix that. With the council's direction, I can add another whereas clause, perhaps providing further context in terms of explaining what the purpose of the easement is for walking, recreation, and biking, and other outdoor pursuits. I could use some language like that and easily add that as another whereas clause. And I think that will satisfy all concerns.
Yeah, something along the lines of the importance of it is a non-vehicular access.
Okay.
Between the park and the school. Would you, as the motion, would be okay with the addition of that?
I am good with that, yes, sir.
Okay. Jack, I see your hand up, but because we're discussing a motion on the floor, I don't feel like it's appropriate to take comment at this point, but thanks anyway. I think we should go ahead and vote with the understanding that the typos will be fixed and an additional whereas will be inserted. So on that basis, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, that takes us to public requests and presentations. This would have been the update from art space number 6, but instead we're going to get an introduction to Joyce. And Preston, you can handle that?
Yes, sir, we'll do. Thank you, Mr. Rivera, for joining. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
Bye, Joe. It's my pleasure to introduce Joyce Wong and Swiftwater Solutions LLC is the town's new engineering consultant related to development review. They came out on top of our competitive bid or RFP process last month. Very competitive, and it's my pleasure to introduce Joyce. Joyce, do you want to come up and say a few things?
Or just say hello if you like.
I feel like I was just up here not too long ago. Yeah. We are super excited to be taking this on. I will be working very closely with Joanne to make sure things are passed along smoothly, and I'm slowly convincing her that we're going to become best friends. So no worries. All of her great knowledge will hopefully get osmosis into my brain, but she has graciously accepted to be available for questions. So we are certainly going to be working quite a bit together and trying to make this transition as smooth as possible.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joyce. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Welcome aboard. All right. Moving right along, we are going to item number 7, presentation regarding tobacco use prevention and control. Carolyn?
They show the slides. I do. So I need to share the screen then. Oh, okay. It's already set. Very good there. And oh golly. Make it. Can I leave it like that? Y'all can read that. Then I won't waste time. And Dr. Gingery, we were going to sit at the table together. So we have a few people that have come together to work on this process. I had shared with Preston a press release that came out about me last week, because most of you probably don't know a lot of my background other than I am very passionate about tobacco control, which is why I'm bringing that forward into the place where I live. And Dr. Gingery has been a wonderful support for that. I don't know if you all know, but he's responsible. He said he had help, but he's responsible for Montrose being a smoke-free environment before the rest of the state went smoke-free. And then the other thing he reminded me that a first that was in Ridgway was Adobe Inn became the first restaurant to go smoke-free in the state. So we've been a first before. So talking about, and I've spoken with some of you about this, but I just want to put some background for numbers. We do have numbers from the Ridgway and Uray high schools, but those are confidential because the numbers are small. So we're within region 10, and I've looked at those numbers and they're pretty darn close to this. Okay, so in region 10, those who have INS, electronic nicotine delivery system, is the word to be used for electronic cigarettes is INS. 35% who have ever used them. Youth who have ever used a cigarette, about 20%. And that's about the same that's in the state of Colorado. The past 30-day ends use in region 10 is 18%, in Colorado it's 16%. So we're higher than the state. Past 30-day cigarette in region 10 is 5%, in Colorado is 3%, which is pretty good. Youth not refused purchase, i.e. they were able to purchase them when they went into a 78%. So not good. That's a problem. In the state, it was 73%. Youth who use flavored electronic cigarettes is 24%. Youth find it easy to purchase ends in region 10, 50%. So that's pretty bad. Youth easy to purchase cigarettes in region 10 is 39%. So youth are able to access. And just as you may or may not know that there are ways to do compliance checks for youth access, and that is covered by two. One is the state does an inspection, and the other is the FDA through the Center for Tobacco Products. They make it over to the Western Slope to each site maybe once a year. So very poor checking up compliance checks. And then who do we have in Ridgway as tobacco retailers? So the Shell and the Ridgway, I think I spelled that wrong, Conoco. And then over on the right-hand side are when they had compliance checks that they failed. So again, about once a year that they're checked on. And if once a year they're checked on it and they failed it at that. So those are the numbers that are on the right. So 2021 was a cigarette sale. And in 2022, the Conoco was an in sale. Crazy Bee Smoke Shop, which you know has recently moved. It had electronic cigarette sale. And then the liquor stores all sell tobacco products. Ridgway Mountain Market sells tobacco products, and they have failed their compliance checks, and then the dollar store. So those are the sites that we sell tobacco in Ridgway. So then the population of Ouray is around 5,000. You all know that. You know the population of Ridgway around 1,200. But I don't know if you knew that the number of deaths in Colorado are around 5,100. So that's our county going poof every year. And I always think that's such a powerful statistics, but you know, since it doesn't, those 5,000 people don't disappear just around us. I think it gets lost, but it's the size of our county gone every year. And the number of deaths from lung cancer, so lung cancer in men and women, the number one cause of cancer death in the United States and in Colorado. But the number of lung cancer deaths in Colorado is 2,400 every year. COVID cases, I just got this number from Tam's presentation, was 1,109 cases that we've had of COVID and 6 deaths. And then the deaths in the US each year is 480,000. A stunning number. It's been going on around that number since I've been doing this sort of stuff, which is around 40 years. And then the deaths in the world from tobacco is 8 million deaths a year. Again, a stunning number that the tobacco industry has been able to do what it wants. And they do what they want. One of the things I was going to ask if anybody from the tobacco industry is here. So I do expect them as we move forward. I expect to have tobacco industry participating in these discussions. So who else in Colorado has done a tobacco retail license, TRL? And so this is something in Colorado, we've got rid of preemption. So pretty much you can do what you want in tobacco control in Colorado. You aren't preempted as that occurs in many states, but in Colorado, you can do pretty much what you can think of as long as it's decreasing the number of people who use it. So one of them, and again, if you know that our town manager has worked on this issue in Avon before, so he has done this. Loveland, Wheat Ridge, Lone Tree Pub. I just put a few of them down. And then what they charge for the licensing fee, so the initial application, and then the renewal fee. And then flavor sales ban. So, and I'll come back to this, but if you look at what some strong tobacco control measures is getting rid of flavors, particularly in the electronic cigarettes. Youth use flavors. And somewhere between 80 and 90% of youth are using flavors in their electronic cigarettes. So flavored cigarettes are banned, but flavored cigars are not yet banned, although they're supposed to be at some time by the FDA. But you can do flavor sales ban. So No more electronic cigarettes that have flavors. One thing that you can do, because this is a controversial area, is that you could allow just tobacco flavored. The supposedly adults that are using electronic cigarettes to quit their cigarette smoking. Longer discussion whether that's valid or not, but they can use tobacco flavored cigarettes. It is the fruit and candy flavor that the youth use. So then the policy options to bring forward to you. So the way I look at it is the lowest bar is the tobacco retail licensing. What that would entail is that the city, the town would create an application process to have licenses for those 8 tobacco retailers. And then there would be an annual fee to maintain that license. Those 2 fees would pay for the compliance checks that would occur. And we could talk about that frequency such that they are more effective than what currently happens. The other aspect that I would like to bring up is something called the end game. So for me, I'm very interested in having fewer people die from tobacco. So how do we end the sale of tobacco? Because 1 in 2 people who use cigarettes, who smoke, will die of a tobacco-related disease. 50% of those deaths are in middle age. So therefore, you're having a significant impact on the healthcare costs, the life, what it means for that family if someone is persisting in smoking. So that is my personal mission, is to decrease that. And so with tobacco retail license in the end game, we would say, okay, there's 8 now, no more. If you move, like Crazy Bee moved, if they tried to move again, no, they would lose their license. If Conoco decided to sell, they would lose their tobacco retail license. So there's 8 now. You can keep them as long as you stay where you are and doing what you're doing. So that's part of an end game. That is novel. So there's a whole bunch of tobacco retail licensing occurring in Colorado and across the country, but limiting it to this quote unquote end game would be novel. The other one is a flavor ban, so including menthol. So menthol is particularly used by disparate groups. So whether it is Hispanic or Black or LGBT, they have a higher rate, 1, of smoking, of e-cigarette use, and of menthol use. So it's important to include menthol. It also has some physiologic detriments to it in metabolism, particularly of nicotine, but that would be another one, is a flavor ban that would be inclusive of menthol. This is something the Center for Tobacco Products has been struggling with since 2009 when the law they created it. They haven't been able to get it through. And again, I would say because of the tobacco industry. The next one, tobacco-free generation. This is an end game. Because what this means is you set a date, and the first place in the world where it's been implemented and it's working is in Brookline, Massachusetts. And so if you were born after the year 2008, you can never buy tobacco again. The average age of starting cigarette smoking in the US or e-cigarettes would be around 13, 14 years of age. So if you pick a date where a 13, 14-year-old can never buy cigarettes or any tobacco product, that would be a tobacco-free generation to do that. Project Sunset is ending the sales of tobacco. I mean, I've been talking with some of you. Of course, that's where I'm at, but realizing that that is, that's an assertive move. And so Beverly Hills and Manhattan Beach have done that. But they also have other places in quite close proximity to them where people, it's, first of all, the people that live there, they don't smoke. And for the adults, it's my estimation that we're somewhere around 3 to 5% in Uray County people that smoke. We don't have data on adults that is that low. We can ask Tanner if he agrees with it, somewhere down around that, but you can guess for yourself when you're walking around the town or in the county. So a discussion that's open. Questions? What would you feel ready to do? Do you have any other?
Thanks, Carol. And welcome, Dick.
Thank you. I would like to say first, working with this woman is very much like being inside of Jericho. She's going to have the trumpets. So be ready. One of the, I'm just going to add very quickly, one survey that I heard about very recently was that now 86% of Americans have expressed the desire to see tobacco go away. that they have wondered why it hasn't been regulated already. Of course, the FDA doesn't regulate tobacco, which is a big part of the problem. But it's become much easier to be on this side of the fight now because attitudes have changed. And with that, turn it back to you. For that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dick. Questions, comments from council?
What exactly are we being asked to?
We're being asked to consider, at the very least, tobacco retail license, to create a licensing program. At some point, Preston, if you'd be willing to say if you were about your experience in Avon, as Carolyn mentioned, Preston, when he was working in Avon, I believe you kind of spearheaded the effort over multiple years to institute a licensing program as well as tax.
That's right, yeah, so over the course of, say, the better part of a year, Avon, while I was there, Avon Town Council explored tobacco retail licensing program. It ended up getting implemented in concert with a dedicated tax on tobacco products, which went to the voters, and the revenue from that tax earmarked for specific purposes. And so when it was coupled with that initiative of the ballot issue and, prolonged the initiative in general, but it navigating the whole initiative, came with its challenges with members of the tobacco industry heavily interested in what was going on at the time. Certainly wasn't novel in 2018. There have been other communities that have been considering that or had enacted something similar as it related to the licensing program. I don't recall exactly about how many communities had a dedicated tobacco tax at that point, but it certainly was an interesting and challenging initiative that took a substantial amount of time.
Thanks for that. So is that?
So will we be voting tonight on implementing a retail license?
It's not even, it's a discussion about whether we want to pursue it. What Carolyn's presented us with is a draft ordinance from some other entity maybe. She's asking us to consider starting down the road. And I know I've had many discussions with Carolyn about this stuff over the years, and she'd like to see it happen yesterday, understandably from her perspective, her life's work. But both Preston and I have tried to stress to her that this is going to take time. The wheels of government don't move very quickly sometimes, most of the time. And we want to, the public always wants us to consider things carefully. And we want to give the public a chance to weigh in on important issues. So that's why things take time. So what she's asking for is for us to consider basically asking staff to start the process of maybe taking her draft ordinance, taking it to Bo and tweaking it and putting it into a format that we could then consider in future meeting if we want to go that way.
So the draft that we're looking at would be the final.
No, that's just something, Carolyn.
It's just a draft that, so there's a group of people that work on this stuff at the state and national level. So to be transparent, some of the attorneys that work on the national level on these issues did draft it up. And initially I had asked them to include flavors in it, and then flavors were to come out of it, even though I left them in the title. So yes, it's simply a sample.
And I apologize, I didn't mean to put you off, sorry. I apologize for not being more clear in the packet that it wasn't something that staff had sanctioned, if you will. It was something that Carolyn had developed and provided and asked to be included in the packet. Again, I think John said, or Mayor said it perfectly. Before you is a request to direct staff to further this initiative and look at it further. I would opine that it would need to include substantial public input, work sessions, workshops, if you will, to make sure that everyone understands. Again, if you all would like to opt for this route, understands what's before you all.
The reason I brought that up is that in reading through it thoroughly, a lot of information. Section 7 on proximity limits says no tobacco retail license will be granted to a tobacco retailer for tobacco retail establishment located
within 500 feet of another one. And it seems to be some of the 8 are less than 500 feet away from each other. So clearly that's something that has to be reviewed in the context.
That's a good example of how this is not specifically tailored,
Which is why I was asking if we were going to sanction this particular one.
Either that or you decide one of the two of them have to go out of business. So the reason for doing this end game is to say, okay, there's 8 here. How they maintain their income, that must be from seriously other business that they're working with, it would seem to me. But so grandfather them in, but then end game it. Such that it's not renewable, you can't move, it's renewable, but you can't move, can't sell it.
Do we have any idea on what the sales tax revenue is for the town from tobacco products? Is it
Not off the top of my
broken
head.
down like that?
I could give that to you, but I can't give it to you right now.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I know that our usership or people who use tobacco is low, but my thought being it's such a steady flow of people back and forth all day, every day, that is not a substantial chunk of money.
That being said, is that not money? Like, you know, and I know we've discussed this with marijuana taxes, like, how deeply do we want to entrench ourselves and be like, this is the stream of revenue we want to maintain
Beth, you're
when
entirely
it's
right.
super tainted?
I'm a non-smoker. I don't push for tobacco
Right,
products.
I'm saying, yes, I think it would behoove this council to figure out how to make the budget work and not stress about the tax implications of selling less tobacco.
Correct.
Which is a huge problem most states and the country are impacted with, because it does fund so many things. The master settlement agreement that was done in 2009 should have millions of dollars coming into our state to fund tobacco control, and it's not used for that. It's, and Tanner could quote me into the State Department, but it's pitiful what the state uses to do tobacco control.
With that, I know that Carolyn had arranged for something, a presentation from some Voyager youth, I believe.
Yes, so.
Why don't we go ahead and let
You
you
want
guys.
to, do you want to?
I got it. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, community members. My name is Kathleen O'Mara, and I'm the facilitator and the founder of a youth group called Teens That Care, which is part of the Communities That Care Coalition. Oops, excuse me. We were established in June of 22, and the focus of this group is to discuss teen issues and concerns, things that are on the teenagers' minds, and bringing those concerns to a performing arts platform. So tobacco use and vaping primarily has been something that's been part of our conversations ongoing, and we are very excited to be invited to perform for you because we're actors and we love to perform. So our active group, there's about 13 youth members between basketball, COVID, sickness, homework. We're a small representation this evening, but we love what we do. We love an opportunity to share our voices with you and appreciate the opportunity. And this was written by a young man who was out of school today sick, so I'm filling in for a role. And so really quickly, we'll introduce our cast. Just look out that letter, guys. I have to wait it out.
I'm Megan, I'm in 6th grade and I'm playing Tom. My name is Ava, I am in 5th grade and I will be playing the Bolt.
My name is Tim. I'm in 9th grade and I'm going to be playing the teacher. My name is Icarus. I'm in 11th grade and I'm going to be playing the principal. My name is Kathy. I'm not telling you how old I am, and I'm playing the mother.
Hi, I'm Tom, and this is my life. My dad is never around, and my mother is always sleeping on the couch. She never wakes up from work, and I pretty much have to take care of myself. We ran out of food, so I have to ask my mother. Hey, Mom, we need to get more food.
I already know. Just shut up. Go back to playing Legos. Your dad will be home soon. Anyway, you're such a brat.
My mother always forgets that my Legos broke. One night she got drunk and broke a new set that she had just gotten.
I would speak to her, but I realized she would just yell at me. Life would just feel depressing. I wish something could make me happy. Hey, Tom, I heard you don't have any food. Imagine, I don't want that. Feel well right now. Well, how about this, loser? Give me your lunch money and I'll give you this little device. It'll make all of your troubles go away. It'll make all my troubles go away. Sure will. It's my own special Tabasco. Honestly, I had no idea what Tabasco was, so I talked to him about it. And he told me it was this great thing that was easily accessible among teenagers. And it would make me cooler and better. So I took it, and he didn't even take my lunch money like he said he would. Hey, you can't have that, Tom. Go to the principal's office right now. That's unacceptable. The parents are late. They haven't shown up for at least an hour, and I'm forced to talk to you about this alone. Found a small device in your backpack that you were smoking in the hallways. Why would you do this? Well, I was told it would make me happier and cooler. Why would you need to feel more happy and cool? My parents never talked to me. I only eat once a day, or 2 or 3, and people bully me for not having anything. I understand we've had cases like this. How'd you get this device? My friend, well, my bully gave it to me. Well, you made a bad choice today, but I'll excuse it this time. I'm going to have a long talk with your parents because this is happening to a lot of kids, surprisingly. I'll take your device and you're going to promise me that you won't do it again or else you're getting detention. Are you okay? Sadly, only some people decide to come over and help you genuinely, while others push you away or mislead you into believing you're safe. Hey, Tom, need another device, if you know what I mean. I really want to make myself feel better about everything around me, and my friends always have access to it because of their parents or other special ways. Stop lollygagging and go clean your room, Tom. The reason I need to feel more happy is because I get neglected at home every single day, and that I don't have enough food to eat. I feel like if I smoke out of a small device or a small cigarette, Tabasco will make me feel more happy, make me feel whole. Principal wants to take my parents away, and honestly, I love them. If I get into a new home, I may just feel like I want to do more Tabasco so I can feel close to home once more. Please, I don't know how to escape. When I get older, will people judge me? Will people decide that because I smoked when I was younger, I'm not worth it? I just don't know how to escape from Tabasco. It feels like an infinite loop. I get neglected, bullied, then offered some Tabasco, then get caught, then have to go through the whole process again. Not only is the problem that people keep neglecting me, but I keep getting it offered, and I can't say no. I just can't escape from Tabasco. Principal takes a parent off stage. Thank you. Like I said, this is written by one of our Teens That Care members. Gave him the challenge, and he took so many of the conversations that our youth had about tobacco and vape use, the root causes, some of the reasons why they are tempted. And this is what Mark has come up with to share with you. And thank you, our actors, after a very quick rehearsal in the van.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Thank you so much. It's, I had seen them in September do a skit. It moves me to tears because what you said is so true. And it gets at a very young age before the frontal cortex of the brain, the executive function, can actually say no. And so that addiction becomes so very real. And then as you get older, it's one of the hardest drugs for a longer set of reasons to quit. And then unfortunately, the stuff that comes with the nicotine causes the deaths that we were talking about. So I knew it was a thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks again.
Yeah, I can't say it better than Max.
Yeah.
I think Cessation is super important to me for adults. And if there was a tobacco tax, I would argue all of it needs to go to help the people quit. It's hard to do that when they're transiting the town. But, you know, again, it's about the latest number I heard in Colorado is 12% of adults smoke. I saw numbers from Mesa County, which are like 14%. I've already said, I think adult smoking in Ridgway, Uray County is low, but the youth and addicting the youth, it's that we would put them on that pathway. So I just ask.
Thanks, Carolyn. So I think we understand what the ask is here. I'd like to give the public an opportunity to weigh in with questions to Carolyn or comments to us about what we just talked about. So either anybody here in the room want to weigh in, or anybody on Zoom? Kuno?
You want to say it?
I applaud her intent. However, I'd like to make a comment that in the mouth as an opening into our body is ruled by either good taste or greed. And I don't think it's the town government's job to regulate either good taste or greed. The basis of what we put in our mouths, you can't bigger numbers or for obesity, that is also something that you can't regulate. So although I think it's applaudable, I don't think it's applicable. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Go ahead.
My name is Rich Niemeyer, and I've only known Carolyn about 2 weeks. And the first thing I saw about her was the news release about what her work has been. And she asked me to come along and support her while she presented it, and I was on board right away. I disagree with what you just said. It is applicable because the people who get addicted, it's almost impossible to quit for many people, and they end up dying from that. And that's where my first wife passed from lung cancer from smoking. She tried over and over to quit and was never able to. So I hope that this is something that Ridgway can implement. I know it ain't gonna be easy. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody on Zoom? Or anybody else here in the room?
Yeah.
Oh, Tanner, go ahead. And then I'll take Chris on Zoom. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Tanner Kingery, Public Health Director. I just want to weigh in and say our office is a resource to you guys. If you need help with policy work, I know Carolyn has a lot of resources too, but just as your local public health agency, if you guys need resources or data or examples of what's been done in other towns or anything like that, let us know. Here to help. So
thanks, Dan. Yep, appreciate all you do. On Chris, I see on Zoom, I see Chris wants to weigh in. Go ahead. Need to unmute.
There we go. Thank you. I apologize that only my first name appears. I don't seem to be able to change it. My name is Chris Bostic. I work with an organization called Action on Smoking and Health, and I'm also the global chair for Project Sunset, which Carolyn mentioned earlier. And I just wanted to provide a thought experiment for the City Council. If a new product came out tomorrow, say a body spray, something unnecessary for life, that proved to be addictive and deadly, it would be removed from the shelves immediately. Now, we didn't know all this about tobacco when it was introduced to the market 7,500 years ago, but we know it now, but we don't have to be stuck with it. And there's a lot of products that do far less harm than tobacco that have been removed from the market. Lead gas, lead paint, asbestos, those are all horrible things and they should have been removed from the market. But tobacco was left unchallenged, partially because of the tobacco industry. So what we're contemplating doing here is not radical. The radical thing is that something that is addictive and deadly when used as intended is sold virtually in every street corner. Thank you very much. And I also offer my resources and expertise as the council leads it.
Thanks, Chris. Anyone else? All right, so what do we think? Do we want to?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I mean, I'm in support of this generally. My father died of COPD early. Question I have is regarding a comment that Preston made, which was the amount of effort it took to establish the licensing, I guess. If we prove his pursuit of this, what is the time frame? What is realistic? How much of a workload is that to like? Just a consideration, Mr. Review.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the question. You know, it's hard off the cuff to opine on what the timeline could look like, you know, and look into the time I spent in Avon, it was substantial over the course of work sessions and workshops, substantial public engagement to make sure folks understood, especially the retail community, and beyond. So, you know, that's a time commitment in and of itself. You guys know better than anyone, we just went through a budget cycle, what staff's work plan looks like for 2023. I don't envision if the direction is to proceed with, you know, pursuing this in some capacity, that next month there'd be an ordinance before you all for introduction. I could potentially, I'm thinking out loud, maybe see a work session or a workshop of some sort in April to kickstart and then go from there. I don't know if that's answering your question a little bit, but you know, from staff perspective, we're limited. It's not cool to have to say that. It's going to have to be a slow and steady wins the race kind of.
Makes sense. We do have a lot on our plate already, but I also think that shouldn't keep us from potentially pursuing something like this.
Something that Carolyn and I spoke about when we were on the phone that didn't get highlighted tonight that I think is an interesting mid-ground is essentially freezing the year in which people can buy tobacco products at 21 where it is now. So whatever, 21 years ago. But then next year's 21-year-olds would not be able to purchase tobacco. And so it is something I found interesting because, you know, we need to provide help to those who are smoking, but we also need to be cognizant of how they feel like we are telling them what to do. We are telling them to change their habits, which sort of accomplishes a similar thing to saying we've limited these licenses because you slowly have fewer and fewer people you can sell to. I think that's something I find worthy of throwing into the conversation versus walking up to a resident of Ridgway and saying, no, you can no longer buy your tobacco products in this town. That is a right they have and is getting taken away. And if we think about how things get perceived in this country, a right that has and gets taken away is a whole lot different than saying, sorry, kid who's 19, when you turn 21, that is not something that is going to be granted to you.
The tobacco-free generation.
Yeah. So I don't know, I think that's something I would love council to consider. I think it's something that's explainable to our community. Kuno kind of hits the mid-ground between what you said. I'm not, you know, we do have to draw a line somewhere because it's a really harmful substance. And I think it's a line where we could talk about that. And then maybe that sidesteps the issue of the licensing, because over the long haul, and just thinking about staff capacity and do we want to add that? 10 years from now, you have 10 years less of people you can sell tobacco to.
I'm interested in that for sure. I mean, I guess one thing I would say that has always intrigued me in this discussion is, you know, a lot of indigenous people would talk about how tobacco was something sacred in their culture long before the colonists came to this continent, and if they want to keep using it in their faith practices, their rites and rituals, there's nothing that says they can't grow their own tobacco and use tobacco that they grow themselves.
Can I address that?
Sure.
I think we should always be very sensitive to the sacred use of tobacco in the indigenous population. The only thing is that the addiction and the dying is higher in the indigenous population than it is in the general white population. And the tribes are interested in decreasing that use. But the sacred use, they totally want to keep. They totally want everybody else's hand off it. And I think if we can make that very clear, I have tried reaching out to the tribes around here. It's still a work in progress because it is hard. It's really hard.
I think
topics
that,
there.
I think that the issue is to tobacco industry, that the corporate cigarette and e-cigarette monolith is what creates the vast majority of the problems. Like I say, the ritualistic use of tobacco by tribes can continue, and it's going to be a whole lot less harmful if they have to grow their own and deal with it in that way, rather than be able to go out and buy cartons of cigarettes whenever they want to. So I think that's the difference in my view.
Can I add one more thing for the tobacco-free generation? That comes with free legal support should there be any challenge. So there is a group that supported Brookline, Massachusetts. There is a group of attorneys. They're based in Northeastern University in Boston. And they have said if anybody does anywhere in the US tobacco-free generation, it will be challenged by the tobacco industry and they will defend it at no cost to the locality.
It's interesting. All right, well, I don't see any more hands up on Zoom, and I don't see anybody else here in the room that has their hand up. What do you guys think about this? I mean, I think with the understanding that staff needs whatever time it's going to take, I would think that hopefully Preston's previous experience in Avon might give him a little bit of a leg up on this effort. Some work's already been done, but the majority of the work is going to be in outreach. And I mean, I think the thing that Ridgway does so well is make sure our community is involved in more serious decisions we make, and is given plenty of opportunity for feedback. And I think that that's equally, if not more important, with the retail entities. So yes, it's going to take time, but if we're interested in pursuing it, I don't see any reason why we can't ask staff to start the process at whatever pace makes sense, given the workload.
And this is something, you know, if this were a measure that the city of Ridgway was considering as a health teacher, I would love to be involved and get the youth that we're sitting here talking about involved in the conversation as we're making those decisions essentially for them, because those will be their peers that they're looking at, that they're watching struggle with addiction. So I would hope that anything we do would involve reaching out to Sean at the high school who teaches health.
Absolutely. Makes total sense.
I think regardless of the outcome of the exercise, I think it's a good statement for the town to investigate it. I think it's behooves us to look into this issue.
That's the consensus.
Yeah, this is worth looking into, and I think we need to get a lot of public participation in this as well. I don't want to be forcing anything down anybody's throat, but at the same time, I want to make sure that we've got people in town and some level of support behind this as well. So, and I don't think that's going to be a hard sell, quite honestly. I mean, in this town.
I agree. Open it up to public feedback.
Okay.
And I think the discussion is a great thing. I think it's a great thing.
Okay. So I don't believe this needs a motion per se.
No, I think it's pretty clear direction at this point, and I would recommend it, you know, probably most likely some point in April, maybe at the regular meeting, come back with a more substantial item, discussion work session item, and staff can present some initial concepts, data, and analysis. We can have Carolyn there to assist, and I can elaborate in much more detail about what transpired in Avon. I was there at the time, so I think that might be of some help.
Okay. Great. So we're going to proceed. Probably not at the pace you wish we were, but
I'm sorry.
we're going to proceed. Probably not at the pace that you wish we were,
But proceed is a very nice word. So, thank you. Thank you very much.
thanks for your time.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right, that takes us to public hearings. We have two public hearings tonight. Public hearings in this state are a formal thing. We have a couple of, we have an amended plat and then a final plat. With each of these, there'll be a presentation by staff, then potential comment by the applicant. Then the council will ask questions of staff or the applicant. Then we will open it up to public comment. And at that point, you'll be able, anyone in public will be able to address us. The questions can be asked, but we can't directly respond to them in the public hearing. We can try and respond in our discussion later. It's a formal process. It can be kind of annoying, but I just like to make everybody aware of that. So anyway, item number 8 is an amended plat of lot 15 Parkside subdivision, location Parkside subdivision lot 15, address 702, 704, and 706 North Flora in residential R zone. The applicant is Amanda Gerhardt, but I think we've got somebody else representing tonight. And the owner is Habitat for Humanity of San Juans. Preston, are you handling this one or is
TJ's on Zoom? TJ,
take it away, TJ.
Hi, good evening, everyone. And I am sharing the screen, right?
Right.
Okay, excellent. So, oh, come on. There we go. So as you mentioned, Mayor, this is a plat amendment for lot 15 Parkside subdivision. It's considered a plat amendment in the process. So we'll go through that here real quick. Just general process for those who aren't familiar with the public hearing process, just to build on what you were just talking about. First, we'll start with staff report, then we'll have a presentation from the applicant if so desired, and then there'll be opportunity for public comment. And then following public comment, there'll be some town council discussion and then a motion and action. So here's where we are at the very beginning, staff report. So I will try to go through this relatively quickly. There's a lot more information in the staff report, and I'd be happy to come back to anything that the commission, the council or public have questions on. So first, as you mentioned, the Habitat for Humanity of the San Juans is the owner. It's lot 15 Parkside subdivision. And I'm having some technical difficulties. Can you guys still see the presentation?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I'm having some screen issues that I need to get fixed. So the zoning is currently R low density residential, and past approvals, the subdivision was originally approved in 2007. The building permit for this, the 3 units, right? So this is a triplex, was approved in 2020, and there's the building permit number. And then more recently, and we'll get into that a little bit more, but variances were approved by the Planning Commission back in early January. So you can see on the drawing on the right, these darker green lines, those are what the variance was for. And what I'll mention here is that the project was permitted through the building permit process as what's referred to as a triplex. So that's 3 dwelling units on 1 lot or 1 parcel. And what they're doing now is coming through and wanting to subdivide so that each of those units has its own property underneath. And so they're establishing those property lines through this amended plat process. So therefore, because the town does not have a townhome plat or subdivision process, which we're actually working on, but at the moment, that's where the variances are needed. So it's for the internal shared, what are referred to as party walls between the 3 units to allow 0-foot setbacks for those. So as I mentioned, those were approved by Planning Commission. So now we're assuming that, you know, those new standards apply. So here's a quick overview of some of the analysis. So the property is identified as single-family neighborhood in the master plan. The density is between 2 and 8 dwelling units per acre. And this proposal is 6 units per acre, so it's within the density. It's also generally in line with the primary uses. The other component of this is that when the plat was originally approved in 2007, it included a note and notations on this particular lot that it was approved for up to 3 dwelling units. So this is consistent not just with the comprehensive plan or the master plan's density, but also notes and evaluation during the subdivision process originally. So as far as the land uses, as I mentioned, it's currently a triplex. That means 3 units with 1 owner of the property, Habitat for Humanity being the owner. This is allowed by a conditional use, and since it was a plat note, we assumed we took that to mean that that was the conditional use approval. And then, as I mentioned, it was permitted in a building permit recently as well, and it's already constructed. So what is being proposed, as I mentioned, is a townhome, so 3 townhome units, and that is the property lines are the main difference there. So as I mentioned, the plat notes on the subdivision as well. So what's that mean for the overall? And this is where, since the code doesn't necessarily identify this particular element, we looked at a couple different things. First, we'll look at the overall dimensions, and you can see that overall, with the lot width, lot size, coverage, all of these dimensional standards, the proposed development does meet all of those standards. When we get down to the proposed lots, this is where you can see the green highlights there are what weren't being met by each individual lot. And so we needed the variances for those. When we look at the minimum lot size and lot width, though, because of the intent, we look at the overall. So it's, again, a little bit of a gray area, but trying to figure out a way to fit, if you will, the square peg into the round hole. 3 townhome units in a process or a code that doesn't necessarily allow it easily. So we did take a little bit of liberty on those elements. Next is access. Access is going to be directly off of North Laura via private driveways. You can see on the drawing down here on the bottom, those are all the driveways that are accessing North Laura Street. And each of those units will have a 1-car garage plus space in the driveway for another vehicle. So meeting the minimum standards. As far as utilities, because it's an existing subdivision that was approved years ago, the infrastructure, the public improvements, so that includes water, sewer, electrical, gas, roadways, so that includes curb, gutter, and sidewalk, were installed through the subdivision process originally, and so no additional infrastructure is needed for this project, and none are provided. So next we wanted to just take a quick look at the architectural review, and these are the elements that are required through the residential design standards and how they're met. So first, there's some articulation. The top drawing there is kind of looking from the top down, the sky down, the plan view, and you can see that the building is articulated front to back. Variations in the next bullet there is variations in the building mass and height. So you can see that there's articulation. The articulation provides some massing, as well as roof pitches and dormers and things like that to break up the plane. Garage doors are not overpowering or dominating this front elevation. And they provide variation between the 3 units. Here's another one that on the landscaping requirements. Not only did the subdivision and the building permit get approved under previous landscape regulations, but also now we're going to a smaller lot. So this one was a little bit difficult to apply strictly as well. So we looked at it both from each individual lot as well as overall. And understanding that it was designed under the previous regulations, and now the new regulations, landscape regulations that were approved in 2021, we're trying to reduce the amount of landscaping required and for water conservation purposes. So all in all, what this kind of comes to is that we felt that it meets the intent of it, and meets an overall view. It meets the letter as well. So this, as I mentioned, went to the Planning Commission in January. And not only did they look at the amended plat, but they also looked at the variances, approved all 3 of those variances, and then approved the plat amendment with with 1 condition. That the applicant shall address all comments in the planning review letter dated January 6th, 2023, prior to getting the plat recorded. And I'll just mention that we have been, since even Planning Commission, been working with the applicant and their engineers to resolve the comments, and they've actually addressed some of them. But to just try to keep a cleaner record, we just went with this, and we don't see a problem in addressing all of these in a pretty timely manner. So that's then also the staff recommendation this evening. Here's the recommended motion, if you so choose. And then we also provided an alternative, and the bottom bullet there, those 3 components are the criteria that you need to find or could find to either approve or not approve. So so that's it for my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that council might have, or turn it over to the applicant to speak a little bit.
Anybody from the applicant? Oh, there you are. I didn't see you. I'm there behind you. Welcome.
Thank you guys for having us here tonight. I really appreciate your time and hearing this and helping us get across the finish line to getting 3 families in our affordable homes here in Ridgway. And with that being said, I would also just like to give a huge thank you to Preston and his team and TJ for making a difficult process just a little bit more easy for us to understand and to work through. And so I'm here tonight asking for what TJ just talked about to finalize that process so that we can sell our units and get our homeowners into their homes finally. Construction has taken a lot longer, obviously, than anyone would anticipate with COVID and all of those setbacks. And I would be happy to address any questions that you all may have. And again, just really appreciate your time to have us here and to get this done.
Good. Great.
I'll also say just really quick, I also have Albino, our construction manager, available here tonight, as well as a couple of our board members. So between all of us, we should be able to hopefully answer your questions.
Okay, great. So does anybody have any questions for the applicant or staff at this point?
I have a question for staff, and the fact that this is deed restricted units that we're putting in, and they're perpetual. Do we have somebody lined up to manage the deed restrictions?
No, those deed restrictions will be overseen and checked on periodically by town staff at this point.
Okay, and Habitat has a different model. I don't know if you guys want to address that. It's mostly about how the mortgage is structured, and it's very different from most other affordable housing.
Absolutely, and I'd be happy to speak to that. So right now, what we have is our homes are only sold to those that meet the income requirements, so 30 to 80% AMI, and they do buy those homes and they do own those and they do make a payment. What we do is we do not sell those at market rate. We sell those for what is affordable for those families. And then on top of that, we have a couple of other mechanisms that help keep that affordable and prevent things like selling for market value, in a year down the road. So one of those is a shared appreciation model. So they only accrue 5% per year. So they are building equity in their home, but at a very slow rate. So it would take a full 20 years in order to access that. The other piece that we do is there's a silent second that lives on the home for the amount that the home gets discounted. So they cannot just turn around and sell it by any means and have it leave the affordable housing stock. We also have on there first right of refusal so that we as Habitat could buy that back and resell that to the next home buyer at an affordable rate. So those are the mechanisms right now that we have in place, and that will be in place for the triplex in Ridgway to help keep that in affordable housing stock.
Fantastic, thank you. And these will include the land.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, they have the home and the land that the home is sitting on. That's what we would like for it to be, so that that truly is their home, their property, and they're building, it's affordable housing stock, but they're building towards something and can have pride in ownership.
I think they also had sweat equity in it, they had to.
Correct.
70 hours.
Just to note, though, Mayor, the fact that this is or is not affordable housing isn't one of our stipulations for granting them the the amended plat.
Correct.
So just, since we're, I don't know. Formal line of the hearing is, but.
Thank you for saying that.
And we do 250 hours for each adult family member. And so they are vested in their homes. They have put in the time on those homes, and that also brings the cost down as well. Yes, thank you for.
And just to add, the town has its own tracking process for affordable units, the ones that are deed restricted. So we will track the Habitat units naturally. So right now we only have one active deed restriction in town, which is not very many. Now we will have 4 affordable units. So
and many more on the way under construction. Which have 34 space to create, but
well, there you go. And not really,
they
Those
monitor
aren't-
that, right? And they're not sheet based. So yes, it's all very complicated.
Yes.
All right, any other questions up here? Or either the applicant or staff? All right, with that, I will open public comment. Time for anybody in the audience or on Zoom to come up and either make a comment or state a question. Like I said, we can't have a back and forth, but feel free to make a comment if you'd like to. I don't see anybody here in the room.
see any hands on Zoom.
All right. It's going once, going twice. All right, I will close the public hearing, public comment portion of the public hearing, sorry, and bring it back up here for town council discussion.
No brainers.
Yeah.
No, we just need to make it happen so they can go ahead and finish the sale, so.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. Okay, and with that, I'll move to approve the amended plat on 15 Parkside subdivision funding with the criteria set forth in section 7-4-5, 7-4-10 of the RMC has been met with the following condition. Address number 1, the only condition addresses all comments in the planning review comment letter dated January 6, 2020.
Second. All right, motion made by Terry, seconded by Russ. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There you go, passes unanimously. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for your time.
All right. That takes us to our second public hearing of the night. Number 9, application for final plat, Ridgway Land Company subdivision, line 30 through 34. Rest TBD Red Cliff Drive, Bill General Commercial, applicant Vista Park Development LLC, owner Vista Park Development LLC. I saw Joe Nelson either a minute ago. I suppose,
Then we can start, but I'll see if I can find it.
yeah, go ahead, TJ, you can get started.
All right, excellent. So as you mentioned, this is a final plat for and a PUD, a planned unit development for Vista Park Commons PUD subdivision. Oh, come on, there we go. So it'll be the same process we just went through. So let's see here. The legal description is, as you mentioned, lots 30 through 34 Ridgway land subdivision. It's currently zoned general commercial with a PUD. The current uses, it's vacant. Well, I guess it's in between, right, with some public improvements that have been installed recently. And the preliminary plat and PUD were approved by the the council back in August of 2019. So just a little bit of a summary of what's, well, first, the applicant has submitted everything that's necessary to our knowledge. No public comment has been received, and the public hearing has been posted in accordance with the municipal code. In general, very high level, the request is to subdivide 5 previously platted parcels into 23 residential units or lots for residential uses. That includes 19 single-family homes, duplexes, and some common space. So here's the PUD component of it. Again, this is another project that kind of straddled some code changes, specifically changes that were allowing, were made to the general commercial zone district related to what types of residential homes and home types are allowed. So essentially a single family home and a duplex were not allowed. The PUD is allowing them. It's allowing reduced lots, and we'll go through generally some of these a little bit more detail than others. There's a lot more detail in the staff report, so please defer to that if needed. Did I lose the? Can you guys still hear and see me? Did we lose?
Hey, TJ, so I don't know if we got kicked out or what. So.
There we go. Okay. They're back online. All right. So,
TJ, can you hear us?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. The Zoom, we had Wi-Fi issues, so I don't remember where we left off. But we're joking that you probably got done with your presentation by now.
Yeah, so with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. No. I'll just go back here. So the summary, it's a subdivision to create 23 lots for residential uses, 19 single family homes, some duplex units, and then some common space. Now the PUD standards, where that comes in is a variety of deviations and waivers that are being requested. Those are detailed much more in not just the final plat staff report provided for this meeting, but also we attached the preliminary plat staff report that gets into a lot more detail. Just didn't necessarily want to bog it all down since the final plat is a kind of a consistent with the preliminary plat. So that kind of gave the background. But in general, we're looking at single family and duplex homes being allowed that are either not allowed or allowed by conditional use in the underlying zone district, some reduced lot sizes. And we'll get into that here in a minute. And I'm having my, here we go, reduced setbacks, they're requesting amendments to the architectural standards, design standards, the landscape standards, as well as providing some deed restrictions and reducing the total required parking. These are all elements that were requested at the preliminary plat time and are consistent with the final plat as submitted. But we will go through some of those a little bit more since some changes have been made. So first, here's an image of the whole plat, the whole area. As you can see around the exterior, there's those 23 homes or lots, plus the common space in the middle. So first, talking about the master plan, the property is 2.4 acres with a density of 9.4 dwelling units per acre. That is a little less than the maximum densities allowed in the zone district. But again, being a project that was originally contemplated prior to the master plan, it seems to be applicable. It is applicable with townhomes, multifamily homes, duplexes, things of that nature as well. Again, as I mentioned, most of the lot is undeveloped. The residential lots are, but most of the public infrastructure is in. That's required prior to submitting the final plat. Public improvements that are not completed at this time before the final plat is submitted or approved have to be bonded and included in a subdivision improvement agreement. And that's actually the next item on the agenda. So we might need to push some of that conversation over to that item if we need to, but these are two elements that are going to be a little bit joint. So yeah, I just mentioned this again, 23 units with some single family and duplex. Common spaces include the parking lot, a couple of common buildings, storage, things of that nature that'll be used by the residents. Lot size, as I mentioned, the overall lot size is 2.4 acres, but the general commercial zone district requires a minimum of 5,000 square feet per lot, and the lots that are being proposed are anywhere between 1,000 and 1,018 and just over 3,000 square feet. These numbers are consistent with the preliminary plat as approved, and I think I go into more detail in the staff report on those specifically, which have changed. Again, setbacks, the zone district requires 15 feet for front, as well as sides, 8 feet for the sides, 8 feet for the rears. All of the setbacks, different property line setbacks are identified on the plat and the site plan. So it's quite clear what the allowed setbacks for each lot will be. And they range, as far as a rear setback to 4 feet, the duplex lots, again, with that shared party wall will be 0 foot setbacks. And front setbacks are proposed at about 7 feet. Jumping ahead a little bit, but that also makes some sense because rather than fronting on a road or parking of that nature, where you need a driveway to park vehicles, the project, the homes are fronted on more of a pedestrian walkway type access. So the reduced setbacks seem to make some sense in this context. Parking requirements was reduced. Again, 44 was required. The parking requirements were reduced to 40 through the request of the preliminary plat. They're actually providing 44 spaces. That's 40 regular, 4 accessible spaces. And again, that's in a common area parking lot. As I mentioned, the deed restrictions, there are 2 lots. These are the duplex lots that are being deed restricted. There is some discussion at the preliminary plat about having one in at least a minimum in each phase. I believe that there's not a plan to phase this project anymore, but I would defer that to the applicant developer in their presentation. But again, staff feels that the intent of the preliminary plat related to the phasing is being met and the deed restrictions are being met. These next 2, the architectural design and the landscape plan, you'll see that we still have some outstanding comments in our latest letter that was dated, I think it was January 20th, that we're still working through, and those will be some conditions that we recommend. But all in all, we're working through those. We don't have any major concerns. Again, landscaping is one of those that falls between, it was approved with the previous landscape regulations, and now the new ones are being applied, sort of. So we just want to make sure that we're meeting the intent of where we're trying to go, and we feel that it is. So as you can see in this diagram on the bottom here, the vehicular access is to the parking lot, and the just never really know if anyone can see my mouse. Hopefully you can, but access kind of around the horseshoe, if you will, is pedestrian, and that's how the main access to the homes will be. There's no garages or carports, direct vehicular access to each home. Again, the utilities have been installed. There are still some that we're working through, again, semi tied to the SIA, which we'll talk through at the next item, but also some that we just need some clarity on, mostly having to do with the as-built. And so staff is going to be requesting a condition that the outstanding comments be addressed prior to recording. Similarly, on the curb gutter sidewalk, things of those natures, landscaping, there's just some outstanding items in the comment letter that we just haven't been able to resolve yet. And so we just want that condition placed on there. At least we're requesting that of the council this evening. And then, as I mentioned, that we did receive updated as-built back in December, and the development review team has been reviewing those. Still have some outstanding items, as I mentioned in that January 20th letter, that we would like to memorialize in a condition. Excuse me. Oh, so I apologize. That shouldn't be plat amendment. That should be final plat criteria. It's the same stuff. 745C. So these are the criteria that need to be met, as well as the PUD criteria. So this final plat and PUD did go to the Planning Commission back in October of last year. They approved it with these 3 conditions. Since October, staff and the applicant have been working diligently towards resolving some of those items. A lot of those conditions were quote unquote prior to the town council considering the requests. And so we feel that based on the applicant's submitted information between then and now, conditions 1 and 2 were met. And with a new letter being sent out on January 20th, we feel that condition 3 was met. So therefore, all those conditions we feel have been met to allow this to come forward here. However, we are still recommending that town council approve it with some conditions. Those conditions being 1, the subdivision improvement agreement be approved by town council prior to the final plat PUD being recorded. As I mentioned, that's just the next agenda item. So this is one that we just want to make sure are tied together. And then condition number 2 is the applicant address all the outstanding comments in the January 20th staff letter, again, prior to the final plat and PUD being recorded. So with that, this is a recommended motion. It's also in your packet, in your staff report, as well as an alternative, if so desired. And again, your criteria, if you choose to move in a different direction than staff recommendation. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And hopefully the applicant has made his way back to the meeting room and will share some of his thoughts.
Thanks, TJ. Any comments up here? We'll give the applicant a chance to address this. You guys have anything you want to add?
Evening, Mayor and Council. My name is David Reed, address 510, business address 510 South Cascade, Montrose. I'm attorney representing the applicant here tonight. The only comment that really the applicant has, unless council has some questions, and the applicant is here to answer any technical questions you might have. Being a lawyer, I'm not particularly good at answering those, but I did bring somebody that can do that for me. But in any event, we are in agreement with what TJ has said. There are a few, I think, minor conditions outstanding that we're diligently working to resolve. I think we've come a long way since the Planning Commission recommendation with 3 conditions, substantially having met all of those. We definitely would like to move forward, and we certainly are in agreement that if council chooses to place the conditions that staff has asked for, those are acceptable to the applicant. So with that, if you have some questions, I'll ask Joe Nelson to come up here and try and answer them. Otherwise, we would appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant? Or staff?
I have a question, nothing to do with the motion before us, but I can't recall. Did you go all electric with this, or is it? Yeah. Electric?
You just made Terry's night.
And you're considering solar.
Okay, let me open it up to public comment then. Anybody either here in the room or on Zoom has any comments? Now's the time. See anybody here in the room? See anybody on Zoom? Going once, going twice. All right, I will close the public comment section of this public hearing. Bring it back up here for deliberation. I think this is another one that's gone through a lengthy process over the months and years, and recently approved by the Planning Commission, so it seems like pretty straightforward.
Good over here.
One, just kind of, when do you think you'll actually start getting construction going?
The day after we get it recorded.
Okay.
We really hope it doesn't take a long time because we're very diligent getting signed off.
Okay.
We're eager.
Awesome.
Great.
Oh, are we ready?
Yeah.
I'll read. Oops, I just lost it. So I move to approve the Vista Park Commons PUD subdivision final plat and PUD, finding that the criteria set forth in RMC 7-4-5C 8 B have been met with the following conditions. Subdivision improvement agreement for Vista Park Commons PUD shall be approved by the Ridgway Town Council prior to the final plat and PUD being recorded with the Uray County Clerk and Recorder's Office. Number 2, applicants shall address all outstanding review comments in a comment letter dated January 20th, 2023, and submit the necessary documentation for review prior to the final plat and the PUD being recorded with the Uray County Clerk and Recorder's Office.
Second.
All right, motion made by Terry, seconded by Russ. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. There you go, boys.
Thank you.
We got another piece of it.
Yeah, we're now into the SIA. This is item number 10. Item number 10, subdivision improvements agreement for Vista Park Commons PUD. It's got Bo's name on it.
Thank you, Mayor. Not to advocate too much here, but I really hope you guys approve the subdivision improvement agreement because it ties in nicely to the prior agenda item. So in the packet is subdivision improvement agreement that is allowed pursuant to the town code, which will give the Vista Park Development LLC the ability to install some infrastructure subsequent to final plat. And as a condition of that, they will provide a irrevocable letter of credit in the amount of $214,500 with a series of 8 outstanding items and a budgetary amount that we've provided along with a proposed time frame. So that's the big picture in terms of what we're looking at for the agreement, but I'm happy to answer any questions that the council might have.
Thanks, Bo. I just noticed, I think item number 1 on the actual exhibit A should be Moody Ditch, not Maudie Ditch. At least that's my recollection from years of looking at that plat. Minor typo, but there's 2 instances where it says Maudie instead of Moody. Anything you guys want to add?
I might just add, again, David Reed representing the applicant. I agree with what Bo has said. I've been working with Bo, who's been working with staff. I think we're in agreement with respect to the terms of the SIA itself, as well as Exhibit A and the irrevocable letter of credit that's being requested. So we're in concurrence with staff.
Great.
And thank you, Mayor. We're happy to make that change upon approval.
Okay. Comments up here, questions? Yeah, that seems like, as Bo says, we probably need to prove this. Any questions either here in the room? I don't see anybody but staff and a couple of chamber reps. Probably no comments from them. Anybody on Zoom? Comments, questions? All right, I think we're ready for a motion.
So I'll move to approve the subdivision improvement agreement for Vista Park Commons. With the update to the appendix.
Exhibit A.
Excuse me.
Second.
Motion made by Russ, seconded by Kevin. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Get these signed and move on. All right, that takes us to item number 11, Ridgway Area Chamber of Commerce presentation on marketing promotion activities and financial status. Ashley, welcome. Ashley and Adam both. Tag team.
Report. We're very proud to
the publication of the visitor guide. We continue to support sustainable tourism initiatives such as the stargazing community, partner with the Colorado Creative Corridor, and this year we supported a possible production of the Western San Juan Gravel Guide through a grant opportunity as well. Do you want to go over the marketing budget or? Okay. Just not take up too much of your guys' time this evening. We did present marketing budget request this year of $102,000 in lot funds. Last year, our lot funds equaled just over 101,000, and we used RAC reserve funds to cover operating deficits caused by a desire to increase our website productivity, and also just kind of readjusting after hiring a full-time executive director this year versus a part-time marketing executive consultant prior. We are also looking to increase our membership, offering a basic free membership this year as an opportunity for businesses to join the chamber, possibly encouraging them to go for the paid membership, also helping with our chamber budget that we currently offer. And we're also looking to increase funds through grant opportunities, and applications this year, and other fundraising and donation opportunities as well. Does anyone have any questions? That's kind of what we have.
Questions for these guys? Seems like you're continuing to do an amazing job.
Working on it.
It's a pleasure working with you and seeing all the great work that's coming out.
More to come.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Just want to note, as you hired a new consultant to work with social media stuff, if we're gonna post about Blue Lakes, by God, let's post about sustainability and being ready when you go and checking in with at least Ridgway Adventure Sport, like all of those types of things. So
Leave no trace and save the Blues.
yeah, so
action partners, all those things.
yeah, exactly. So those, people know where Blue Lakes is, so it's not a crisis if that's there, but we just want to emphasize this is a really important place, and we're excited to share it with you. Here's the resources Ridgway has to help you.
Yes, exactly.
Good suggestion.
Yeah, that's the main goal. So thank you.
It doesn't say, is Catherine Ridgway resident or Telluride resident?
She's Ridgway.
Okay.
Yeah, we're very grateful to have her.
Yeah, that she seems like great.
Very great.
There's somebody else in the room for questions here. Anybody on Zoom have any questions for these guys? I think we're down to the core group here. Do we need a motion to approve the budget request, the lodging tax request, Preston?
No, sir. No sort of motions needed. This is purely informational, as required for the professional services agreement. It's a nice formality to have the request for you, but we budgeted for lodging tax dollars. The agreement lays out 7% will go to the chamber to provide welcoming tours and promotion services.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along. That takes us to item number 12, request for authorization of staff to expend budgeted funds and enter into a contract to purchase a fleet vehicle for the Public Works Department. This is a new truck for Randy, is that right?
It's for Pam.
For Pam.
You're buying a car? Thank you, Santa.
It's a new lightning EV truck.
So just to make sure there's no misinformation out there in the paper. Funds were earmarked in 2023 for the purchase of a new works truck. Yes, the truck would be for Randy Barnes, Public Works, maintenance operator 3, to drive on a day-to-day basis. You go out and take one look at the truck he's driving. He's got some really buff shoulders these days because the power steering is out, and there's a lot of other issues with the truck. So he's due for a new one. So he's pumped about this.
No longer pumped.
Oh,
I thought you meant that. I thought that was your
no.
I thought Terry would be that.
I'm just impressed.
Is that fun?
Yeah.
That was a Bernie Pierce pun right there.
It was a Preston Yield.
Wow. It's a used 2019 Ford F-250 XL. Price is $32,500 above or below the budgeted amount, and based on the town's procurement annual purchases over $25,000 requiring council approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Sounds like you got enough budget for some fuzzy dice.
Never mind.
That's what I'll get.
That's good. Letter.
All right, with that, does somebody want to make a motion?
I'll move to authorize staff to expend budgeted funds and enter into a contract to purchase a fleet vehicle for the Public Works Department. A total sales price of $32,500.
Second.
Motion made by Russ, seconded by Terry. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Item number 13, discussion and direction regarding participation in the Mountain Towns 2030 Solutions Project. Preston.
If JT were here, I'd ask him to present the item. Do you know much about the Mountain Towns?
I saw the presentation they had at the Senate Energy Board. I was pretty impressed by it.
There's a staff report that gives the overview of stuff. Terry, do you mind talking about it?
Oh, geez. Well, it's pretty well laid out here. It's an interesting organization that supports many of the items that the Sustainability Advisory Board is working towards. And it generally presents them in a series of workshops. I think we missed the February one. Maybe we haven't missed it. I don't know.
No, it's next week.
Next week. And there's a handful of others. Many of which, like I said, many of the topics are consistent with some of the topics that are being debated in the Sustainability Advisory Board. The pay to play is a little squishy. I mean, they have a recommended amount. I think Kim has recommended that an option rather than us just participating solo is that she might look into a regional participation. I noted that she mentioned Uray and San Miguel County. It could also include, mountain town of Rico, which is in Dolores County, and potentially the West End. I mean, she's limited it to Uray and San Miguel because those are the participants in the CAF, in the climate action plan. I would suggest that we certainly participate if it's a regional participation, but even without that, I think it's a worthwhile endeavor. The presentation the guy Luke, I think his name was, that gave was impressive, and a couple of us at San Miguel Power side, I thought it was worthwhile. What else to say about it? It's not listed here already, but
so I'll just jump in. Kim, I believe Kim Wheels heard back from Town's staff and her idea of regional participation. I think, well, she floated it and they said, great. Concept being all these entities will what they feel comfortable with. $2,500 was suggested, but they take whatever. I threw out during the SAB meeting. Someone wanted to offer $100, and I wonder what they would say. I wouldn't recommend $100 for a contribution here, but the point I'm trying to make is Mountain Town seemed okay with the regional idea, the collaborative piece. I'm not quite sure how that would look. Kim seemed to think that Eco Action, or what I gathered from her, was that Eco Action would spearhead and would attend everything, and then maybe regurgitate everything, or provide the resource material to all the participating entities. I think that could certainly work well. The other option is for the town to participate directly. Not quite sure if it's limited to one individual or a number of folks from the jurisdiction to be able to access the resource materials, participate in the webinars. Not sure how long the webinars are. Still trying to figure all that out.
My sense is one or more of the members of the Sustainability Advisory Board will volunteer to participate, if not burdening staff with it. I would probably sit in on behalf of SMPA if given an opportunity, or as a member of the alternate SAB. And I would recommend the $2,500 if we agree to spend that as a maximum. If it goes regional, we may spend less than that. And that's to be determined.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I just checked my calendar. I signed up for a webinar next week on the 16th. It's called the Zero Footprint webinar, and I think that's some of their favorite week. If I'm not mistaken.
Mayor, did you say you knew the date for February?
February 16th. If it's the one just next week.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the potential benefits of this, and in the seminar we sat in, is they highlighted the work of Christy Butte, who has already implemented an all-electric requirement, and then they're working towards net zero. So there will be participants that are on the same track as we are. Some of the goals, in the strategic plan that we've set forth. So it gives us a chance to bounce or use examples of other communities and learn what has worked or what hasn't worked.
This has a lot of parallels to Colorado Communities for Climate Action, where that's looking at lobbying at the state level and pooling the resources of the small communities to do that. This is pooling resources of the small communities to decide what we need to do here to make our progress towards that carbon-free world. And that's, to me, makes total sense that we would participate in that, because we can piggyback off the staff time at Crested Butte or piggyback off the staff time at Salida or other communities that are doing this. And so I think my take would be, let's explore what options are available to us through Eco Action Partners. But if this comes down to the town of Ridgway needing to make an investment and join, I think I really appreciate that they were clear that 2,500 was aimed at a larger community. And we could take a stab at a number lower than that if it comes down to that. But I think joining with our CAP partners through Eco Action Partner will be really powerful as well.
In particular, because Kim herself is on the new code board, and so she's plugged in a number of parallel efforts. I don't think, though, we should limit our participation to just having her regurgitate things. I think we should have, and I imagine we will have active participation, probably through volunteers in the SAB committees, my guess. So I agree with you. I think if we could find it in our hearts or in our budget to allow for 2,500 or less, that we will either participate solo or should the regional manifest.
Are you guys not getting their emails already?
I don't think I was actually. I was just trying to do it and it wasn't hitting send, so I'm trying to not.
Because this is the one from this week came yesterday.
I swear I'm on my phone trying to sign up.
Next Thursday, the Zero Footprint Climate Solution.
I remember seeing it somewhere.
From Mountain Towns? Oh, I must not be subscribed.
You want me to forward this to you?
Yeah, I may have it. Thank you. I seem to remember reading about that.
I think I remember getting this and not really fully processing it and being like, I get enough emails and didn't sign up back in the day. So I think that's what happened. But if it's something we're actually considering being a part of, then it's cool.
Was that a workshop they were putting on?
Yes, yeah, it's part of their, it's part of their MT 2030 solutions thing. It's their February session.
And you signed up, you registered for it?
Yeah.
Oh, how much did you pay? 2,500
bucks? Well, no, it just was an opportunity to join the webinar. So I'm not quite sure how it all works.
I mean, their website quotes people from Jackson and all over the place. So we're really pulling on a wide variety of small towns and mountain communities networking.
And learning from the mistakes. That's key. Yeah.
So does it make sense to direct Preston and to work with Kim and figure out the best step forward for us participating and then go from there?
As a contribution level.
Yeah, contribution level. I was throwing out 1,500 as an idea.
I like that.
GUA. You saying?
No.
I'm okay with that.
That had real strong dad from 10 things I hate about you vibes.
Fortunately, I didn't hear.
No, it's a movie.
All right. Try and focus here, folks.
Gonna work 1,500, you're gonna work with Kim.
Yes.
Yeah.
That'll work. I would say direction, but I think since it's, there's financial implication of motion. Would be good.
I move that we explore participation in Mountain Towns 2030 with a financial contribution not to exceed $1,500.
Second.
All right, motion made by Terry, seconded by Russ. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. That takes us to written and verbal reports. You all have the letter in the packet notifying you of my appointment to the planning commission. And Foyster's been really involved in a lot of things since she moved here, and I think she's got a lot of energy for this. She's very excited for the opportunity. But the cool thing is we had 6 letters of interest at the time.
That's awesome.
3 from brand new, relatively new residents, all with interesting backgrounds. They were all very understanding about not being appointed because they're new, but they told me they continue to be trying to be involved. So that was good. So that's that. And number 14, unless you have any questions. Just got the manager's report today. So has everybody had a chance to look at that? Do you want to highlight some things for us?
Yes, sir. Please, sorry for the delay in getting it out. A lot of this is officially the longest manager's report I've put out. It's 15 pages long. Granted, there's a lot of pictures and stuff. Going back, one of the reasons I think we received so many letters of interest for the planning commission spot is our new plane dealer ad, which we had our first one go out a couple weeks ago. Thanks, Aaron.
Hey, Ridgway.
Thanks, Kate.
I think it looked really nice.
I think it looked really nice
I
too.
mean, I'm biased, but yeah.
Did you design it?
I helped.
Oh, there you go. Well, thank you for all your help. I think it was very well received.
Good.
So yeah, if you didn't see it, it was, I think, the 3rd week edition of the plane dealer went out. So I'll highlight a couple things. There's some space to create public art info sessions, one of which is going on right now at Ridgway Space to Create. There's another one tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Folks from Art Space, I think Greg Foley is in town. John, do you know? Is it Greg?
I don't, I assume so.
Yeah, Andrew Michelson was supposed to be here again. I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, he had a family issue, didn't make the trip out, but some really good community input sessions on the outward facing public art aspect of the Space to Create building. So participate if you can. Similarly, there's a community room input sessions. First one Monday, February 27th. Next one is Wednesday, March 1st. Tara will be facilitating those with, actually, Kevin, is it the build committee that will be facilitating these sessions? Yep. Yeah, there's a subcommittee of the use committee. So if you can, be good to have some really good representation there, and hopefully a number of folks coming in to give their 2 cents on how the room should be used and how it should look.
Input would be great.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Ms. Joanne Fagan provided an update on the GAC project up at the water plant. We hope to have preliminary plans and the CDPHE design report done by the end of March or early April. We've come to the point of issuing an RFP here in the coming weeks for companies to provide bids on the necessary GAC equipment, which could or will help inform the remainder of those plans. There'll be a need to request an extension to the energy impact, the EIAF grant that we have from DOLA. Another 6-month extension will be necessary. Shouldn't be an issue with DOLA, but that will be needed in order to accommodate the timeline to get it done, which at this point would look like fall. But making progress there, exciting. I mentioned the ad. I introduced you all to Joyce Wong, who at the beginning of the meeting, and just to elaborate, she's a principal engineer with her firm, Swift Water Solutions LLC is the firm. So she is our point of contact. She's the project manager and the lead reviewer for the engineering side of development. So sorry if I didn't make that clear earlier, but that's what that's all about. So very excited to have her on board. Her and Joanne have already spent some time, a considerable amount of time in some downloading sessions. You know, Joanne knows anything and everything about Ridgway, so it's going to be a lot for Joyce to have to take in, but she's been great so far. And then in the report, there's a update from Mark Castrodale on the county's master plan, or the master planning process, essentially saying, stay tuned. They're kicking off project on the 21st of February at the 4-H Center. 2 o'clock was the start time of that meeting, and they will approach the town and the city at the appropriate time once they can prioritize. But I thought it was great that Mark reached out with to both Silas and myself with an update. That's a lot, and there's a lot more in there. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Preston.
Shout out to Pam, Love Your Valley is back.
Yeah. I'm not getting huge responses though,
Really?
but we're gonna make it happen.
All the
Okay,
brewers,
we'll see.
all the brewers at Barrel Fest were clamoring for it, so I'm surprised.
Have you come up with different housing solutions for anything?
We're gonna pay for it.
So
That's our solution.
I talked with Nicole Johnson about floating the idea to her, and she was interested about potentially using some of the VRBO units for.
Okay. Yeah, well, we'll talk about it.
I was surprised to see you say in here that you were looking at housing when the feedback I got from the brewers, some of the brewers at Barrel Fest was that what worked like with the Montrose one that they do at their big new venue is just provide a stipend. Get a set amount of money, and I don't think it's even very much now. I think it's $150 or something. And that makes it so that the locals who don't need lodging get a little something and don't feel, you know.
Our locals are already all on board and we've never offered them lodging before. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, it just seemed like it seemed like a nice idea that took a lot of pressure off of you for finding too, but whatever works. You're the master of these things, so just thought I'd mention it.
There's a couple more things, sorry.
Go ahead.
And I think they're important. Chapter 7 updates. I won't go into great detail, but TJ and Katie from CPS are doing a wonderful job trying to keep the timeline on track. There have been some really good work sessions at the planning commission level. John, for Russ, for all the other planning commissioners having to read through code and red lines. It's a lot. And
we love it.
Nothing else.
And there's another meeting at the end of this month, and we'll be getting some changes and more red lines to you all by the 14th. Just, FYI there. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the timeline being delayed a little bit, understandably so. It's been really great so far. Is going to drive staff to be recommending that the moratorium be extended via emergency ordinance for you all to consider at your next meeting, March 8th. Again, that's only a recommendation at this point. That's for you all to consider, but that will afford staff more time to get, well, not just staff, but the town more time to get zoning regs and subdivision regs where they need to be, which was the whole point of putting that moratorium on new development applications in place in the first place. So just FYI there. This one. There's supposed to be a water outage eastern half of town tomorrow evening, starting around 10 PM. And if everything was gonna be prepped and ready to go, which it would have been, wouldn't take very long, wouldn't take more than a couple of hours. There was some setbacks today at the Riverfront Village project site. Happens, but that tie-in is not going to be proceeding tomorrow night. And so we are going to, did you put it in the paper?
Yeah, I couldn't speak. I believe you pressed it.
I haven't had a very good day, I'll be honest with you,
Okay.
because of this news. And so
Okay.
we need to spend a good majority of tomorrow trying to make folks aware that this isn't going to happen.
But they will be coming back.
But it will be coming back at a later point, so it's a huge bummer to have to be at this point. So I've been working with the general contractor and their subs to say this will not happen again. And so it's been a very frustrating day, but I just want you all to know that it's not going to be happening as scheduled tomorrow night. Okay. Sorry for any inconvenience that's caused you all and
We just
everybody.
give you more content for your social media posts. You can throw it out there. Breaking news, town of Ridgway, no outage tomorrow.
No, I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
It's not great. What, when do you know when it is gonna happen?
We don't.
Too soon, okay.
We don't.
All right, you can post it.
Yeah, and I just found out late this afternoon. I probably should have just called you right away. It probably would have been too late anyway, maybe, I don't know.
Never know.
But just FYI, we'll be coming around soon with some more accurate information. And the last thing, we are going to embark on a process, not quite sure what it might look like, to update the street lighting plan. Terry, John and I took a little tour, I think it was at the last council meeting, of the different sizes and scopes of the streetlights around town, and there's a lack of uniformity and a lot of other issues, and we need to sort through them all. And so updating the lighting plan that we have in place, it's not really called the lighting plan, it's something different, lighting ordinance, something like that. It's a actual living document that needs to be updated before we embark on rectifying everything and completing what Val was talking about during the public comment portion of the meeting, where we need to make sure some of the streetlights that aren't in compliance come into compliance.
Did Adam touch you?
No, I haven't heard from him.
So Adam, works for a lighting company, he's offered maybe pro bono to help review the lighting plan and provide recommendations for placement, lamp styles, height, metrics, all that stuff in a thorough way. And I'm also trying to engage him, do the same for Nuclear, Natarita, and Norwood. So, because they all have international dark sky and they're all looking at doing something similar. So good, he may be involved in that from a professional lighting engineer perspective.
Right? All right, anything else?
I've got a couple of quick things. Back in the budget, we had looked at doing a small microgrid for the space to create. And I was going to be investigating grant opportunities for that. So let me give you a heads up on where that's going. So the DOLA has put out a special microgrid grant fund that I'm going to eventually apply for the construction grant, but there's a preliminary planning grant opportunity. And I want to fold the microgrid for the space to create in with two small microgrids that I'm going to try to construct for our San Miguel Power offices in Ridgway and Nuclear. So I'm probably going to need a letter of support. That's the only contribution at this time that would be required for my planning grant application submittal. Secondly, if you remember, a while back, I presented an idea of putting solar on the Green Street Park. And since then, based on Preston's recommendation, I've also designed one for the South soccer field. To that Dana Ivers is interested in allowing as much as 10 acres of her property that border our property there for an additional much larger solar array. It would be effectively nose to nose with the one that maybe the town would agree to for this South soccer field. While I'm bringing that up is that I'm planning on looking at putting a large battery bank with all three of those possible sites and calling those a microgrid and using the battery bank for two purposes. One would be to provide resiliency for the circuits that are connected to the line nearest those three sites, nearest Green Street, So in the Green Street Park, it would be backing up effectively the Parkside and River Park and the school. It would be a battery bank that would back up all those loads for 4 hours in an outage. In the case of the South Soccer Field and, where Dana Ivers and if the town were to agree to put a smaller system right there south of the soccer fields, that would be backing up parts of Solar Ranch and maybe the other direction down towards Darwin. So this is part of what I want to put a planning grant application in for, to look at all of those details, all of those logistics. Again, I will be coming to probably the next town council meeting with the request that John sign a letter of support for the planning grant, that I can get as much as $36,000 to hire engineers to look at the details of all of this. So the question, the reason I bring that up is I can, prior to asking for that letter of support, do a PowerPoint presentation showing those 3 sites and showing the designs I have for them, just to give you a heads up of what I'm looking at. I mean, this is preliminary engineering, so it's just similar to what I showed you last time in scale and scope. So it's not a detailed engineering. That's what I want the planning grant money for. If we get awarded the planning grant, or even if we don't, and the town is interested in pursuing this, and Dana is interested in pursuing this, then the construction grant might cover as much as all but 33% of the cost of the systems, and maybe even more, because you could stack the federal grant funding, and there's a whole bunch of federal grants available, including 30% right off the top. That used to be an investment tax credit, but because they changed that to what they call a direct pay, which means that the town, not that the town would have any financial interest in the construction of these, but SMPA as a nonprofit would be eligible for 30%, where we never were before because we don't pay taxes. So 30% from the feds and this other grant would cover everything but 33% of the balance. So it's a major opportunity. San Miguel Power will be looking at using our RUS USDA loan, our financing for below interest rate loan financing to finance the actual remainder that's not covered by grants. So I'm been pretty busy working on these things. I'm going to be putting out a workshop on this concept probably next Thursday that I'll invite you to, that can look at other microgrids, like, for example, a small microgrid for this facility, for the other town facilities, for the fire departments, or possibly a mission critical loads up at the water treatment plants, both of them. So there's a lot of grant money out there. These grants, this one I'm talking about in particular, the only eligible applicant are either co-ops or municipal utilities. So we have to write the grants. We just need the partners willing to, be interested in what is considered microgrids for community resiliency. So there has to be a big community element to it, and how it benefits the local communities. There's a vulnerability requirements, eligibility, and community participation. It's kind of convoluted. Anyway, so I'm just giving you a heads up that I'm working on these things.
Great.
And the ask eventually would be for you to sign letters of support for my planning grant applications.
Sounds good. There's always got a lot of irons in it. Other input on any of your side projects? Nobody said anything about the Stevens joke. That was pretty good.
His was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, what about?
Where's Bo? Sure.
I emailed Julie since I'm still not on her weed board email list after a couple of times asking. So
Oh, you're not getting those emails?
no, still, yeah, no, I asked her.
You've emailed her?
I just emailed her again today, this afternoon, but yeah, would love to go.
Yeah.
Maybe you could give her a nudge too, just to, seems odd.
Because yeah, I was glad you included that, because otherwise I would.
Anything else? Everybody ready to go home?
Yeah, I think so.
I was fishing, guys.
Yeah, it was better than 300 on page 4.
We powered through it. If I don't hear any objections, I call us adjourned.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Bo. Thanks, everyone.
Not sure. Thank you, everybody.
Oh, you guys wore the same shirt. They got the memo, apparently.
The government finished cleaning up the mud season.
Oh, we're not in season.